that can't be heard. Okay? But it's a lie. You have a gigantic audience, and more importantly, a gigantic audience full of disposable income when you are a conservative. That's my point. Their entire fucking it's fake victimhood that they have cultivated that so many dumbasses, including this guy probably, believes in without realizing that he's like paying into a fucking grift. For me, the money isn't the W here. It is the truth about something that is profoundly fucking scary. It is incredibly scary. And that is that this man had a gigantic fucking platform to harass Sandy Hook victims' families. Okay?
Millions of people that watched him, and we were just putting him out for free, and it was very popular with the left because it was us tracking and protesting the KKK. It was us exposing police brutality and things like that. And I wasn't trying to be left wing. I just thought those were really important topics, and so I got really popular with the left wing then. And they went and had me speak in San Francisco and New York, and I got big awards, by the big liberal Democrat channels.
Let me ask you about that part, because that's an aspect of your work and who you are that you cultivate, which is different from in the studio. From the very beginning, did you believe it was important to go to demonstrations, to talk to the people on the street, to be part of protests?
Absolutely.
And how did that play into?
You have to be You have to have something mentally wrong with you on a different level to even think that about Sandy Hook is so crazy. Oh, really, Chowder? Well, let me tell you something. In the aftermath of the Uvalde school shooting, I'm willing to bet that there are significantly more people that believe that was fake. The only difference is now you don't have a singular fucking speaker that redirects that anger and vitriol at the families in the way that Alex Jones did. However, that narrative that these school shootings, these incredible fucking acts of these incredible massacres are fake is a more prescient and more popular narrative than ever before. I talked about this extensively during the Uvalde shooting. Maybe you weren't here and maybe you missed it. But that is where you go when you have no more options. If you have firmly believed that like guns are not the problem your entire fucking life, and you have come up with different counters over and over again, like, well, if there was only a good guy with a gun, then it would have been fine. And then every single one of those counters, as a consequence of how much gun violence occurs in this country, all of those counters have been dispelled. All of those narratives have been destroyed, right? You finally have to arrive at the final fucking way of coping with this reality, rather than recognizing the real problems. The real problems being that like guns are easily accessible. If you can't recognize that, then you have to cope with that reality by coming up with something completely insane, like, oh, well, it must have been fake then. Okay? And that's where this comes from. And there are more people now that believe shit like this. There are more people now that believe shit like this than back when he was popping off with the Sandy Hook stuff. The only difference is there isn't anyone dumb enough like Alex Jones to come out and say it and have like such a prominent, massive audience.
To what you were trying to do at Infowars.
Well, Infowars is a radio show on TV. And that's really what Oprah Winfrey is too. It's just, but I mean, that's, it all goes back to radio, and that started 100 years ago, or a little bit more now. And so that's a separate thing. A talk show with opinions and people debating is like The View. They're not fact checking, they're just giving their opinions. When I'm on the radio show, most of the time I'm just a pundit giving my opinion. Everybody on talk radio knows that. We play devil's advocates. We look at both sides. I don't do that very often now because people can edit tapes and hurt you bad. I would say, well, let's look at this. They're saying this, and they believe that, and now let's look at this. And it's
This actually makes it worse. He's like, I don't even look at both sides anymore. So, like, what? Because people can edit tapes. It's like, motherfucker, are you serious? So you're just openly fucking admitting. You're openly admitting that, like, the shit that you're saying is not even devil's advocacy. You're just a psycho.
later, as I realized my show had a lot more power than I thought, I realized, well, even if I'm not the one editing these tapes, I've got to be more careful because there's bad guys out there that will do it. But the films I'm proud of, we didn't ever put any films out about Sandy Hook, never had any products about Sandy Hook. The films we would try to really vet and do more journalistic research into and fact check and interview renowned people. I mean, I interviewed like former U.S. Attorney Generals and members of Congress and former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I mean, that's who we would go for these films. Top economists, you know, just really big names for these films. And they were very, very popular. So that's where I've been journalistic and done a good job. I guess with the age of the internet, people grabbing clips out of talk radio or talk TV and mixing it together, I can see how it could cause problems. That's why I've admitted that I've made a lot of mistakes, but none of it was done from some master plan deal. It was done from a bedroom in my house.
Sustained.
So one of the things I notice about you is that you have a very distinctive voice, very deep, sort of gravelly voice. Did your voice always sound that way?
No.
What happened to your voice? Why does it sound the way it does?
Well, I remember the two demonstrations where I finally wrecked it. And one was about 12, 13 years ago. It was actually film of it.
Objection relevance?
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Why his voice has changed? I don't know what that is.
Do you have some way to tie this to the damages portion of this story?
No, I thought you told me.
No. I'll address you if I'm talking to you.
This is so that the jury can understand who my client is and properly assess his credibility, his demeanor.
Sustained.
I mean, no, they're treating him like a baby because like his team is just awful.
Let me ask you directly about Infowars as we're coming into the period where Sandy Hook occurs. Okay?
Yes.
About how many employees did you have circa 2012?
I'd say about 45, 50.
And where were you broadcasting from?
What year?
2012.
Oh, I was broadcasting from offices, studio.
In terms of size, how does that compare to, for example, the New York Times in terms of how many employees?
Objection, speculation. I don't believe this witness has any personal knowledge about the New York Times employee roster.
So you can only answer the question if you have actual knowledge about how many employees the New York Times has. Otherwise, you have to say I don't know.
So as a member of the media, are you generally from?
One of the days, the judge not only said you're no longer allowed to lie, she literally stopped the proceedings short because like he just kept lying about things that had been proven to be lies already. Pretty funny. He just can't help himself.
Familiar
He
with
can't
the
stop.
media organizations that are in the industry?
Yes.
And based on that knowledge of the industry, can you tell us size-wise how your organization compares to the New York Times or to CNN?
It's between 1/100th and 1/20th the size of those different organizations if you count it for employees and bureaucracy and the number of offices and things they do.
So I want to ask you some questions about the different formats of the
By the way, this is his team asking him these questions because they want to introduce Alex Jones as like a folklore hero who is just like doing the right thing. Understand that that's the reason why they're setting him up like this. They want to garner as much sympathy as possible. This is, I mean, of course, pretty impossible considering how much Alex Jones has fucking lied and what kind of brutalization he has brought upon the victims of Sandy Hook, right? So you already know all that shit, so it's impossible for you to see, but like they're gonna still try. Now, what's funny about it though, the other thing that they were trying to establish is that the Infowars parent company filed for bankruptcy. I think it was like Free Speech Media or something, and that they would go bankrupt because the parents of Sandy Hook are suing him for $150 million in damages, which they fucking deserve, by the way, for the multiple year-long harassment that they withstood, that they had their cars shot at, that they had their fucking houses shot at. They were completely doxxed. Yeah, Free Speech Systems is the company that already had filed for bankruptcy before this happened. Okay? But the reality is that the treasure trove of data that they found, you guys didn't know that? Yeah. Yeah, people showing up to their houses with video cameras, filming them nonstop. Now, listen, not only that, and this went on for a decade, but also Alex Jones, is a liar and did what Alex Jones loves to do, lie. He not only capitalized on their suffering, he not only sent a bunch of the most unhinged, deranged psychopaths, some of them that are heavily armed, over to their houses, but he also continued to lie on this court case by declaring that he was broke and that he had no money. Why would anybody think you're pro Alex Jones? No one is going to think I'm pro Alex Jones. You literally have to be an Alex Jones head to think I'm Alex Jones. You have to be that fucking mentally ill. But one of the things that we found out was that the company was making $800,000 a day. Okay? $800,000 a day during CPAC in 2018. So he's caked the fuck up. Okay? So the idea that he doesn't have enough money to pay $150 million in damages in this defamation suit is a fucking straight up transparent lie.
Different shows that Infowars broadcasts. Can you tell us what the sort of different segments are that would appear on a given day at Infowars circa 2012?
There was my 4-hour radio show that in 2012 was just a webcam on me for people that wanted to watch it online. And then it was me at a desk with a camera.
I don't think they were making $800,000 every single day, but that was the highest earnings week that they said that they had. You can't fucking... unfortunately, you can't really... They're not reliable narrators, right? So they could be lying about it. They could just totally have made more. They could have made less. But up to $800,000 a day for the week of CPAC in 2018 is real.
In 2012. And then, that was it, basically.
At some point, did you all begin to have additional segments besides just you doing your radio show and answering calls?
Well, yes, that's... Now I understand what your first question was. What was the different types of media we were doing?
Yeah.
There was the syndicated radio show. There was also had a visual component, digital video online. And then there was documentary making, and that's what I had 10 or so people working on with me. And then I started to develop reporters and people to go out and actually cover like live events and protests and things that were going on. And then we also did everything in-house. So we had our own shipping department to be able to ship out books and films. not just my books and films, but a lot of other authors, books and films. We interview a lot of those authors. And so that's what we were doing back then.
Now, your radio show, was it purely
Brothers, according to the SPLC, even like as recently as this year, he got cash pay, well, not cash, not fiat currency, but Bitcoin payments made to Infowars.com. $2 million, $8 million, like one-off Bitcoin payments and shit. So like these guys are caked the fuck up, okay? Caked out the goddamn wazoo.
a call-in show, or did you also go sort of on rants about different issues that you were seeing?
Yes, we would have a lot of calls. Sometimes the whole show would be calls. Sometimes it would be all guests. Sometimes I would just decide I had so much news that I was going to just cover up to 100 stories on there and just look at them. The audience knows whether it's the BBC or whether it's an Infowars story or whatever it is. They can choose. They can go look it up for themselves. We're just covering what's in this. And so we just bam, bam, bam. It's the same way today. Like Pelosi's in Taiwan. What do you think of it? You think there's going to be...
Chatter said, "Prove it." Alex Jones' Bitcoin fairy drops $8 million a month on Infowars. His anonymous Bitcoin donor dropped nearly $6 million more worth of that cryptocurrency on the embattled extremists, and is now giving him close to $8 million in 26 days. Hate Watch is determined. This is happening like May 26th because of the defamation suit. To prosecute a war, we need prayer, word of mouth, and money. Money's a symbol that the enemy has used against us and is bringing us down with. You must use that money to attack, Jones said. And continued his pitch for donation for several minutes, leaning on metaphors about battle and war. Yeah. And then one day later, the same Bitcoin mega donor who previously given Alex Jones $2 million worth of cryptocurrency in April multiplied the donation significantly and gave him a total of $8 million. So yeah. Weird that his lawyers suck though. It's not that weird. He has his like friends on and shit. So
be a war. The Chinese are threatening war. Oh, look, Biden fell down again. Oh, look, that they found another trailer full of 50 dead people in Texas. This is horrible. We got to do something about this. And it's just coming up next. It's real simple. I got a stack of news. We're going to play a video clip of Bill Maher, saying we need to depopulate the human population. And we got, let's take calls. What do you think about Bill Maher saying we should get rid of the majority of people? Well, who's going to...
Guys, his lawyers suck, and this last group of lawyers, demonstrably fucked up big time. But what you also have to fucking realize is that it's kind of hard to fucking defend this guy. Okay? It's kind of hard to defend him. He's on trial for defamation about what he has said and the fucking harmful and the immediate material harms his words created for the victims of Sandy Hook. And he did the exact same thing to the judge. Like, while the trial was going on, he refused to show up, said it was health complications, then went on to do his own fucking show on the day that the victims were offering testimony. And on that day, on his show, he said the judge worked with CPS and therefore was a pedophile. And literally, there's an image. There's straight up an image of the judge on fire. Like, that was the background footage they used, man. You can't make this up. It's like this guy is trying to lose.
Who's going to do that? Who's going to do the killing? I think this is wrong. I think it's dangerous. I think it sounds like Hitler. I mean, that's what we do.
And how did, at the time, 2012, how did you all source
It's not a trial for defamation. The case is over and he's found liable. This is damages trial. Sorry. It's the damages from his defamation. You're right. It's an important distinction. No.
how did you source the stories that you wanted to cover during that segment of your talk radio or
95% of what we were covering was mainstream news going, look, they're saying this, do you believe it? Or what do you make of this?
Also, this is the just curious defense. Love that.
I mean, it's that kind of thing, is that we would simply do what talk radio does. That's what talk radio does. That's what Larry King did, is stack the news articles, talk about what's going on, what people are saying, ask callers, what do you think of that? Do you buy that? What do you think?
Oh, this was a fun moment,
I've
too. This
been
was a
told
funny
that
moment.
It goes on, and he says that he's sorry, and we'd ask that the entire party.
Spit your gum out, Mr. Jones.
It's not gum.
What is it? Because you're not allowed food or gum of any kind in the courtroom.
I had my tooth pulled a week and a half ago, and I had some gauze in there earlier, and it's been causing me to have some pain.
So you're chewing on your gauze?
Would you like me to show you?
No, I
Right
just
here?
want you to answer my question.
No, I was massaging the hole in my mouth with my tongue. I'll show you right here. Here.
I don't want to see
All right.
the inside of your mouth.
Oh no, there's no gum. Hole.
Sit down. Do you want to play the rest of it to see if you'll... I mean, if we're going to go on this path, it could go on all day.
I don't want to play it because defaming someone and continuing this whole saga and then saying I'm sorry is an optional completeness.
Well, I agree with that.
How are you doing
Here's Alex Jones speaking to reporters on day 6
today,
of his
Mr.
trial.
Jones?
Doing great.
Are you looking forward to hearing anything or making your case?
Well, this is all a show trial. Judges don't find people guilty in America, juries do. So she found me guilty. She lied and said we didn't give them the discovery so she could have a show trial and tell the jurors 8 times I've seen her, this man's guilty. So all of your rights.
Bro, look at how he is inside of the courtroom versus how he is outside of the courtroom. It's pretty fucking funny when you think about it. Homie's out here blasting, okay? Homie's out here fucking blasting the judge, especially when he's on his own show. He literally calls her a pedophile. In there, he's like, me, I don't know.
Rights to due process and trial by jury is being destroyed here in Austin, Texas. Austin is the second most famous city in America for judicial fraud. D.C. and Austin, where the Democratic Party have fully weaponized
Mr. Jones, can we ask
the
why you
judiciary
weren't here this
to
morning?